So this is my third time to film the wrap up on this video because I forgot to hit record 3 times. Yeah, this will be my 4th time to do it actually. So anyway, we're throwing rocks out into the lake, having a good time. It's right next to the nature center, so if you bring the kids out, it's always something fun to do afterwards or beforehand. If you have a picnic, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, bring the kids out, donate if you want to, keep this thing going. Anyway, that's a wrap. All right.
Nostalgic.
Unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Warm.
Preserving the history of this building and our community, but bringing it up to date so that we can truly, fully utilize it.
People that we didn't know before have stepped up in big ways to help put this whole project together. That's the best thing about this place.
Now that it's actually come together, it's gonna be pretty awesome, just like getting to be on the big stage and just getting the feel of Nutcracker and everything.
It is an old beauty, redone, but still in its original glory. It's just fantastic.
It's almost hard to believe that this is even possible in San Angelo, Texas. And then you go into that brand new backstage space and it's like, this is how the pros do it.
I remember being very little in here and watching Nutcracker and bringing my kids. So to me, it's memories, and it's really incredible to stand here and see it come to life again.
at the San Angelo Independent School District Transportation Department, we take extreme pride in transporting over 5,000 scholars a day. We enjoy each other, we love each other, we care for each other, we're there for each other, and that's exactly who we want to be for these students.
I think I've got the best job in the state of Texas for a retired coach. I've been doing it on a one-year basis for the last 18 years now. Every year I ask myself, do I want to do this again? And I say, yeah, I think I will do this because I enjoy it.
I like the interaction with the kids. I like the work. I like the people I work with. It's more like a family atmosphere.
I've been in the department about to be 26 years this August. I love my job. I love my students. I love the most to see them growing. The benefits are great. We have the insurance, and we also have a $500 bonus.
That's one of the perks and benefits that we have here is being flexible with your schedule. If that's just morning or if that's just PM or if that's morning and PM and midday, we're willing to work with you on that.
Our drivers last October received a $1 an hour raise. This year we have instituted a training program once a week where all of our employees receive some aspect of training.
Every time I start to get on the bus, my wife always tells me, drive this bus as if our grandkids are on this bus. Because every student on this bus is someone's treasure.
It takes a lot of love. You got to be able to reach out to these kids and know that they're responding to you. We have a motto, students first, family always, and we're the family.
This is part of your family, okay? When you walk to that gate and you go and clock in, and then you see the smiles of your coworkers, you know, it's part of your family.
So whether you're fresh out of high school, you're in college, you're a stay-at-home mom, or whether you're retired, this job fits you. And we're looking for you. We want you. We want you to be part of our family, to be part of our team here at the SAISD Department of Transportation.
Hello, my name is Landon Gilmore, Director of Choirs at Central High School, and we are excited to present this first for us, this virtual concert. This year has been different, as you are no doubt aware, and one of those differences for us was that all of the students have been working on the TMEA All-State Choir audition music. That music's very difficult. It's generally considered to be collegiate or professional level difficulty, and we're proud of how hard the students have been working to prepare and present this music to you.
Hello, my name is Sunday Vaught. I am the Associate Director of Choirs here at Central High School. We are really excited about this process, or this project that we've been working on for our families and for our choir students. In this world that we're all navigating through with all these limits and restrictions, we really wanted something that would resemble a normal or traditional aspect of choir that the students were hoping for. So that's how we came to this process. It's all about this journey and working together. And even though we won't be able to put all of our students together in a classroom, we were able to do so for our performance.
Today we're going to start with Sing to the Lord, which is written to be a concert opener. And this piece talks about a God who is majestic, powerful, and active.
This song is Sleep by Eric Whitaker, and it is a song that was actually written to be part of this virtual choir experience back in 2010. This song is beautiful, has a wonderful melody line, very lush chords, and it's kind of mysterious as well. The lyrics talk about a person who is about to head off to their night slumber, or if you look a little closer, it could actually be about their final resting place. So it's quite a fun song for the students to get to dive into, to really hear those chords that we don't always get in all of our music, but this is one that they really enjoyed. This song is You Do Not Walk Alone by Elaine Hagenberg. It is a song based on a traditional Irish blessing. This arrangement is written for 4-part women's voices. It has a very uplifting message and talks about how you can overcome any obstacle that we face.
I am going to, is my microphone on? I can't tell with this mask on if you can hear me. Perfect, thank you. So we will start this morning, as usual, by calling the meeting to order at 8:31 a.m. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. And we will start with our chaplain prayer. And I'm assuming you're going to lead us in prayer, Gary, and the pledges today? Thank you. Come on. I'm going to, yeah, give you the microphone.
Good morning, everyone. To our mayor, members of the city council, and all of those that are here, please join with me in a word of prayer. Precious Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we bow before you, seeking your wisdom and your counsel as we come together to take care of the city, of the business of the city here in San Angelo. We pray that you endow the members of the city council with the wisdom and knowledge and revelation that can only come from you. And Father, we are so grateful that vaccines are being distributed across the country as we get ready to see the end of COVID-19. But we pray, God, that you continue to protect the residents of this community. And we pray, God, for those families that lost loved ones as a result of COVID-19. Comfort them and strengthen them at this hour. We thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. And we give you and you alone all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We will now do the proclamations for today, and the first one we are going to do will be the proclamation of Concho Christmas Celebration Day. Lee, please come forward. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and, hand it. Proclamation of Concho Christmas Celebration Day. 2020 marks the 27th anniversary of Concho Christmas Celebration's annual Tour of Lights. The celebration, with over 3 million lights, is one of the largest Christmas lighting events in the state of Texas. The event offers a 2.5 mile walking or driving tour beginning behind the main post office on the corner of Abe Street and First Street and ending at El Paseo de Santa Angela. Those involved consist of hundreds of community volunteers such as First Community Federal Credit Union, ASU Staff Senate, SAISD, Congregation Beth Israel, and the City of San Angelo, among others, who greet tour guests and REACT volunteers who act as the administrative host of the tour. In addition, San Angelo police officers and Tom Green County Sheriff's officers and reserve officers help provide extra security during the event. The Tour of Lights can be seen Sunday through Thursday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and each Friday and Saturday from 6 p.m. to midnight, December 4th through December 31st, 2020. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby declare Saturday, December 5th of 2020 as Concho Christmas Celebration Day and encourage citizens to join the activities and view the magnificent holiday lights that have become a community treasure. I just want to add to this proclamation my incredible appreciation for getting the Christmas lights up this year. There were a lot of things that couldn't happen and didn't happen because of COVID, and with the prisoners not able to commit early on, you found a way to get it done, and it means an awful lot to this community, and I thank you so much for the work effort and put it into it to make it happen, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Well, what I'd say to everybody here, thank you. Thank the city for giving us the support we needed and allowing us the opportunity to go ahead and get this thing done this year. As you know, we did anything we thought was a COVID spread, mass spreader, we canceled. We postponed, correct word. And but what we've done is you've got a lot of lemonade out there. We had some lemons, but it's been a blessing. It got what this whole thing did for us. It got us out of our comfort zone, and we developed new protocols and new procedures that we will continue to use. We'll continue to use those as we go forward. We've got a bunch of efficiencies that's worked. Our lines are going through faster, and it's a real pleasure to let you know that our audience has increased over the last 3-year average by 25% in the first 10 days of this event. So, like I say, we are so pleased. We're blessed. And our community is the best place in the world to live, and we love y'all. Merry Christmas to you.
I need to give you this, so I need to have this.
Thank you.
Our next proclamation is of Kiwanis International Day, and do I have folks here in the audience to accept this today? Please come forward. Kiwanis International is one of the largest service organizations in the world with more than 551,000 members of all ages and abilities in more than 80 nations. The members of the Kiwanis Club of San Angelo are devoted to improving the world one child and one community at a time by seeking primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life. In addition to improving the lives of children here in San Angelo and in communities around the world, Kiwanis Club members promote the development of community leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding, and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and community service. The first Kiwanis Club started its service in Detroit, Michigan in 1915, and the Kiwanis Club of San Angelo was formed on January 6, 1921. The service provided by the Kiwanis Club of San Angelo will continue to have a positive impact on our community and citizens, providing meaningful service to our homes, schools, and community. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim January 6, 2021 as Kiwanis International Day to mark the 100-year anniversary of the San Angelo chapter and urge all citizens in San Angelo to support the members of this organization and to make themselves aware of Kiwanis International. Terrific. Would you all like to speak? And here's this, and we'll get a picture in a minute if you all would like to offer some comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. On behalf of the San Angelo Downtown Kiwanis Club, I would like to say thank you for this recognition. We've enjoyed our 100-year partnership with the City of San Angelo, and our roots run deep, literally from the pecan trees on the Santa Fe Park banks of the Concho River to the Oak Grove at Angelo State. Our roots run deep in the San Angelo Fat Stock Show and Rodeo, and we've hosted the Little Olympics for over 7 decades. So we appreciate that partnership with San Angelo. We appreciate the partnership with all of the organizations that benefit the children of the Concho Valley, and we look forward to continuing that partnership for the next 100 years. So again, on behalf of Kiwanis, thank you very much for this.
We will now move into public comment. If you choose to offer some public comment this morning, we ask that you state your name and address or SMD. We ask that each citizen speak just once per item unless asked to comment by council. Public comment should be 3 minutes unless extended by council or translation services. The opponent 5 minutes unless extended by council or translation services. Council has no obligation to respond to comments or questions from the public. Any response from a member of the City Council to non-agenda comments is limited to a statement of specific factual information, recitation of existing policy, and directing staff to place a subject on a future agenda. Do we have anyone today who would like to come forward and offer public comment?
Good morning, Council. My name is Sylvia Martinez. I'm here today because I saw that they were complaining about the lights in some house. Well, for 3.5 years, I've been fighting because I don't come to the City Council because I have breathing problems. This is not good for me. And I was wondering if y'all pass one law, why can't you're going to have to start passing more laws? Like I wish you would pass a law for hoarding. We have so many new houses in the south side, but then we have a lot of hoarding. Hoarding is a lot of cars, boats, and people don't clean up. Now, if I can have my yard clean, and I'm an elderly, sick lady, people can start cleaning. I've complained to everybody, nobody listens. So if y'all pass a law, y'all pass and be fair to everybody. I can't talk for these people. I'm just talking for myself, ma'am. And I hope that y'all can understand that there has to be a law for hoarding. Because, you know, I spend a lot of money and stuff to spray around my house, outside, and everything, and nothing is getting done. So please, when you start giving out permits that, you know, they're going to have to change the other person's living, you have to go with whatever us, like me. I'm a sick elderly lady. I have to put plexiglass in my windows, which is uncalled because I was there first. I've been there in 30 years, ma'am, and I can't do nothing about it. And he's endangered my life. So I just wanted to tell you that, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. I know it's difficult to come speak, so thank you for your comments. Do we have any other further public comment today? If not, I would like to just offer some public comment today. It's been a long haul since the beginning of the COVID-19 thing, and we've talked a lot about the rules and regulations and the requests that we have had as it relates to COVID-19. But today what I want to do is to encourage everyone to get tested if you have symptoms or get tested if you think you've been exposed. Today we have medication for those early on who've been tested and have minor symptoms. Regeneron is available at our hospital, and it has done what people have asked, or for what the doctors have said it will do, and that is if you have minor symptoms and you get Regeneron, it really makes a difference. I know that many people are fearful of COVID-19, and so they stay home, they don't get tested, and they don't go see a doctor early on. But the reality is the following: the earlier you're tested with symptoms and the earlier you address those symptoms, the greater chance you have of having a minor impact of COVID-19 on your health. And I say the following: sometimes we don't relate to people who don't look like us, talk like us, and I am saying to you the following: regardless of who you are, your health is the most important thing, and your family as well. We need you to react quickly when you've been exposed, get tested, and please seek doctor help. There's lots of opportunities to protect your health. We know a lot more about COVID-19 than we knew 6 months ago. And with vaccines, which will start here in San Angelo at 12:30 p.m., we've now got the vaccine here as well. So we ask, don't be fearful. We're encouraging you to be proactive in taking care of yourself and your family as it relates to COVID-19. Thank you. Any other further public comment? Lucy, please.
I just have a question. Do we have an update on the homeless on Chapman?
What we have today on the City Council agenda,
is it on the agenda?
An ordinance that will help us deal with the homeless issue.
Okay, great.
Okay, so.
And I wanted just to make another statement.
Yes, please.
And that is that my deepest condolences go out to everyone in the Concho Valley that has lost a loved one. I know that the holidays are a very hard time, especially now that somebody will be missing at home. And I just want y'all to know that our heart and our prayers are with you. And we pray that God gives you the strength that you need to make it through this very difficult time in y'all's lives.
You know, early on, most of us didn't know someone who had been diagnosed with COVID, and early on, most of us did not know someone who had dramatic reaction to the COVID and tremendous negative health impacts. I think almost everyone today knows someone who has been impacted by COVID. We are losing people that we know as friends and families and who have been incredible participants in helping make San Angelo the great city that it is. We lost the gentleman who had created Connexione, and he was someone who really was passionate about San Angelo. really added a lot to this community. And we will all miss his energy, efforts in communicating what was going on in this city to the population here in San Angelo. So we want to say, send our love and our passion and our sorrow to Gregorio's family. He will be missed. Anything else this morning in terms of public comment from council or in the audience? With none, we will move on to the consent agenda, and we will start with Billie. Do you have something you'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
No, ma'am.
Lane? Lucy?
Oh.
Oh. And Harry? Then I'm going to go Tom Thompson. Do you have anything you'd like to pull?
Nothing to pull.
And Tommy Hebert, anything you'd like pulled?
No, ma'am. Nothing to pull.
Okay. With that, then I would like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of O. May I have that, please?
Moved.
Harry moved it, and I believe Lane seconded it. Any public comment on anything on the consent agenda? With none, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will now move on to item O. And item O is consider authorizing the city manager to develop and implement a policy to waive late fees for water, sewer, stormwater, and trash utility accounts.
Allison Sturvey, Director of Water Utilities.
Good morning, Allison. Listen, the only reason I pulled this is because I wanted the constituents to know the criteria for the late fees and to help maybe explain it to them if they might be eligible for it, because it's not going to apply all the way across the board. So could you possibly do that for us?
And are you saying you wanted the eligibility for waiving a late fee?
Yeah, because they might see this as everyone, and it isn't. It's just for certain people that meet a certain criteria.
Yes, ma'am. And the bulk of those, I guess, specific details will be worked out in a formal policy with the city manager and staff. And so those aren't finalized at this point. But currently, charitable entities and governmental agencies and those two organizations paying on behalf of a customer. So similar to our agreement with Concho Valley Community Action Agency, since they are, I guess, they fall in that category, we do waive late fees for those customers that they are paying the bill and who qualify for those services. And then also, the elderly person is also spelled out in the ordinance. Sorry. Over 60 as a residential customer, and if they cannot pay within the 25 days, they have until the 39th day to pay, but they do have to coordinate that with our office. But we do have other cases where somebody gets a new credit card. They're enrolled in auto pay. They kind of out of sight, out of mind. It automatically pays, but then they get a new credit card because it expired, or they issue a new one and they forgot to update their auto pay. So a simple mistake. They haven't had late fees virtually ever as a customer. We do waive it and want to continue to waive late fees in those circumstances.
And how long is this program for? Like how many months?
So once we formalize a policy with the city manager, that would be perpetual. That's more of a Teresa question. Yes, it would continue from here on out.
I'd like to add as well that a lot of families were affected by COVID-19. There's families, individuals that lost their jobs. We'd like to be able to have the opportunity to work with those individuals and to help those families out. A lot of individuals never really had late fees, but now we're starting to see them because they did lose their job.
We are seeing cases where people do get hospitalized, or a very close family member gets hospitalized, and so they do call our office and say, hey, this is the circumstance that I'm dealing with, and so that's why I accrued a late fee. And so we want to work with those customers in those circumstances.
I just want to add that we, to Daniel's comments, our unemployment rate, which back in February was about 2.9%. We're still at 6.1, I believe, or 6.3%. We still have 3,000 or more individuals who are unemployed due to COVID and loss of businesses, businesses having a difficult time, so laying off people. And we don't hear about these stories in the newspaper. Our agencies, very often the people who have to listen to the story to better understand what's going on in our community and our families. But we as a community have had a tremendous impact from COVID-19, the shutdown of businesses, the loss of business, and so we want to do what we can to help the citizens who right now, not to their fault, don't have jobs or have reduced income.
Thank you, Allison.
Any other questions or comments on this item O? With none, Lucy, would you like to make a motion to pass?
I move to approve as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
A second by Harry. All of those in favor of passing item O, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We will now move into the regular agenda, and we'll start with item A. Tina, if you'll come forward. Second public hearing of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021 for capital items, donations, grants, and projects.
Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. Thank you, Mayor. This, as you know, is a budget amendment, second reading. Normally we don't have this on the regular agenda, but because we had to add 2 items to it, we did want to bring it forward for council consideration. So I'll move through these first several ones pretty quickly since you've already seen them. Budgeting for police donations, the fire grant revenue, paying for an ambulance, insurance proceeds for building damage, equipment replacement, and $345,000. Again, this starts out the carryovers that we see every year for projects that were not completed at year end. And if you want me to move more slowly, please let me know.
Please do if you'll go back, because that was pretty fast.
Okay. You've seen these in a previous agenda,
You
but
might have,
I
but
do
we
want
have short memory sometimes.
Yes.
Next.
So the city clerk obviously carrying over $91,000 for census redistricting fees and records retention software. Billing and receipts carrying over $7,000 for payment processor phase 2. Carrying over $15,000 for signal support and traffic. Human resources carrying over $12,000 for service awards. Carrying over about $1,300 for code compliance for safety vests. And then social services, the infill development project that was on the regular budget for $90,000. Yes, ma'am.
Would you go back to that slide? And this is just a question out of curiosity. On the code compliance safety vest, why didn't we buy that? Why do we have to carry that over?
I'm sorry. Help me with that question.
I can try.
Thank you.
Good morning. What was the question again, please?
Okay, I was just looking at code compliance, and we're carrying over $1,299. And I just wonder, why didn't we just buy the safety vest? Why do we have to carry it over?
We weren't ready to purchase them yet. It just happened, the timing, it was all timing. That's why. So.
Okay.
There's no other reason.
Okay.
And I will say, Billy, normally with carryovers, it's a planned project that was meant to be implemented before year end, but they didn't have the time available, or the vendor wasn't prepared, or something like that. And so they request to carry over the funds from the prior year so that they can purchase or make that purchase in the new year that they had planned before year end. So.
And on the infill development, just an FYI, those $90,000 are committed to. The projects just are not finished, and so we haven't written a check to that developer, but it has been committed to.
Yes, ma'am. That is accurate. Thank you. So, social services carrying over $6,000 for indigent care, and then fire departments carrying over $104,000 for technology upgrades. Texas Bank Sports Complex carrying over $24,000 for the storage building. Stormwater carrying over $425 for a vehicle upfit. That would be for a vehicle that they had purchased prior to year end, but that still needs some equipment added to it. Stormwater carrying over $400,000 for the Sunset Lake dredging and various projects, and then health insurance carrying over $11,000 for the wellness program. Equipment replacement, carrying over $73,000 for police vehicle upfits, and also $6,900 for fire vehicle accessories. And then, of course, the hotel occupancy tax fund carrying over $61,000 for the CVB agreement. Now, these are the new amendments that are coming to you today. Avenue P Drainage Project, carrying over $106,000 from sales tax surplus funds to complete that project. As you saw last meeting from the city engineer, that went a little bit above the budget. And then COCDC carrying over $113,000 to fund the gateway sign expense for the gateway entrance to the city. And that's it.
Have any questions for Gina? Not, if with none, may I have a motion for approval?
Mayor Tommy Hebert, I'd move approval.
Thank you. A second by Lane. And any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Move on to item B. Consider awarding the following purchases for the fire department and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. 1, FS-02-21 ambulance chassis to Jim Bass Ford in the amount of $87,762 per fiscal year for the purchase of 2 units. And 2, the ambulance boxes to Fraser using HGAC contract number AM10-20 in the amount of $294,870.84 for the fiscal year 2021 for the purchase and installation of 2 units. Ryan, you're on today? No, Chief. Ryan, you're not.
Ryan Kramer.
Welcome. Come on.
Good morning, Council, Madam Mayor, Mr. Valenzuela. So Kramer asked me to present this morning because it is a purchase for the fire department. We're requesting authorization to purchase 2 new ambulances from Fraser Ltd. This purchase is 2-part. Fleet Services sent out an RFP for the cabin chassis, and we only had 1 vendor respond. And that total was $87,762. Part 2 is the ambulance module, which the cabin chassis is sent to Houston for Fraser Ltd. To fabricate and install the ambulance modules. And that total was $294,870, and that's from BIBORD contract. No, correction, HGAC contract AM10-20. This is a regular purchase we make every year. It got moved to regular agenda because of the budget amendment that had to go in front of it. So, any questions?
Do I have questions from anyone on council? Then do I have a motion for approval?
So move.
Lucy approved, Harry seconded. Any public comment on this item? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Yes, ma'am.
Brian's asked that people who come to the mic speak louder or move closer to the mic. He's having a hard time hearing people.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So if you didn't hear Teresa, we're asking that everyone who comes forward to the mic to please speak louder so we can hear and better understand. Item C, consider awarding FS-01-21 fuel purchases in an annual amount of $2,500,000 to multiple vendors and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Ryan, you are on this time.
Good morning, all, once again. I do have a brief few slides here that I can show just to give a small history of what we do here, what this core function is for our Fleet Services Department. My name is Ryan Kramer, Fleet Manager for the City of San Angelo. And what basically a brief presentation will look like here for us. This fuel purchasing contract does include both gasoline and diesel fuel purchases. Traditionally, we do have a 5-year contract, so it's typically a 3-year term plus additional 1-year renewals. Our fuel consumption last year, which is somewhat low because of the situations, is just over 700,000 gallons, but typically we're just over 800,000 gallons of consumption that Fleet Services distributes or sells to those that use it. We do purchase for the expense for those, we budget for the expense for those purchases out of our 301 fund, And again, we traditionally award this to multiple vendors so that we have great sourcing for this required product. So this bid did go out requesting rack pricing from our vendors. Rack pricing is just simply a daily fuel quote. It does not involve averages or anything else. This award, we are requesting that we award this for a total of 5.5 years. So the initial term will be for 30 months. And that is to simply get us out of this Christmas season, because we have some hang-ups that hit us because of either council meetings or because of vendor participation. So we're proposing that we get out of this season and move it into the summer so that we have successful bids every time. The requested awards are, as you see there, for tank wagons or small load deliveries to the vendor shown, and to transport or large load deliveries to those folks there. So I'd be happy to elaborate more or answer any questions if I can.
So the alternatives come in when?
So typically what we do is we'll, on a daily basis, when fuel is required, that we order and have fuel delivered to us, we will call our awarded vendors. If for some reason our primary vendors are not able, or they are backlogged a few days out, if we cannot wait, then we'll start looking. So it does happen somewhat regularly that fuel availabilities to these vendors just vary so much. So we want to make sure we keep all of those routes open to us so we have a good product availability.
Yes, Harry, you have a question?
Ryan, since I was in this business a few years ago, explain to the public when you say red dye diesel, that is non-highway use, is that correct?
Well, yes, sir. So red dye diesel is a diesel product that is dyed. It's the same diesel, but we dye it red so that any authority would realize that it is dyed red. And the purpose of the red dye is because it's tax-free when it's purchased. So for the city of San Angelo, what we do is we account for the consumption of that fuel, and as a municipality, we're allowed to do this in the state of Texas. We pay our taxes if we use it on road. So the city of San Angelo still uses it on road, but we compensate for that in an accounting fashion. So we still purchase it red dye, but because we use the majority of our diesel as off-road diesel, we then pay a little bit of taxes back when we do use it on road.
Thank you for the explanation. Move to approve.
Is that the end of your slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have any other questions from council? If Harry has made a motion to approve, may I have a second? A second by Lane. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to item D. Consider awarding ES-01-21 Southwest Boulevard improvements to Reese Albert Incorporated in the amount of $5,925,288.67 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Do I have Mitchell here?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mitchell Gatlin with Engineering Services. Just a quick overview of the Southwest Boulevard project we'll be presenting today. We'll have the project scope, the bid received, and any staff recommendations. So part of Phase A of the Southwest Boulevard project is we'll have a mill and overlay from Twin Mountain Drive to Rockbrook Drive. So that's from around Lamar Elementary School to about 2 blocks south of Green Meadow Drive, where we're just taking off that surface, making sure the base isn't structurally failed, and then putting that asphalt surface back on. Then we also have a full reconstruction at the railroad crossing at Southwest Boulevard, and then a full reconstruction at the Southwest Southland intersection. And so we'll be replacing that with concrete pavement instead of the asphalt. So here are just a couple of pictures kind of reinforcing that Southland Boulevard intersection reconstruction. You'll see the pavement failure here, the fatigue cracking, and the rutting. So that'll be all replaced with concrete pavement. That'll resist that a little bit better with the heavy traffic that we get at that intersection. Moving on to Phase B, we have a mill and overlay from Rockbrook Drive to Sherwood Way, so picking right back up at Rockbrook Drive, going all the way to Sherwood Way. Similar to Phase A, some spots where we are fully reconstructing in some areas. So at the Sunset Drive intersection, we're fully reconstructing right there, as well as at a drainage flume at the Sunset Crossing shopping center right by Hobby Lobby. We're also widening the right turn lane about 200 feet back and about a full lane width right by the McDonald's to help facilitate some of those right turns. It gets pretty congested right there in that right turn lane. We're also installing sidewalks on both sides of the roadway from West Loop 306 to Green Meadow Drive.
Is that required?
The sidewalk installation? No, ma'am, that's just to facilitate some pedestrian movements in that
Is there
area.
pedestrian movements? Do we have a study on that?
We do have some foot trails in that area where you can see where people are walking through that area to get to those commercial businesses. So this is some other pictures showing some pavement distress at the Sunset Crossing. Drainage, you'll see that there's some heavy cracking, some pavement fatigue as well. And then at the full reconstruct, we're fully reconstructing from Sherwood Way to Houston Hart. So from the Dodge dealership around to Cavender's, we'll be fully reconstructing that entire area. You can see on the picture on your left here, you can see some of that heavy cracking and base failure, as well as on the right here, you'll see where that curb has settled down and we have water sitting on that curb. Instead of flowing around, it's getting under that pavement surface and ruining that base. So one of the big ticket items of Phase B, and I'm sure everybody's excited to see this, is that we are planning to improve construct some drainage improvements and some channel improvements at the Southwest Low Water Crossing. These pictures were taken last year in 2019 during one of our heavier rain events. You'll see here we have some on the picture on the left that we do have some heavy water backing up and then just pushing the water through those undersized culvert pipes. We will be replacing those culvert pipes with 5 8-foot by 5-foot box culverts, as well as raising the roadway by about 2.5 feet. So hopefully that will facilitate better drainage flow and help mitigate some of that overtopping in that area.
Is that around the McDonald's?
Yes, ma'am. Then showing just some pavement failure where that water has overtopped and started ruining that roadway, as well as you can see the retaining wall right here by McDonald's starting to fail. That whole channel will actually be lined with concrete all the way to the frontage road to help, mitigate that and help be conducive to stormwater flow through the channel. There was an alternate on this project as well. We have sidewalk additions and improvements from Twin Mountain Drive to Dominion Ridge. We have a lot of pedestrian traffic to the elementary school from those neighborhoods, and so we're actually putting sidewalks on both sides, tying into an existing sidewalk on the Lamar Elementary School side, closing a gap, fixing some settlement that you see there in that middle picture, and helping with some alignment there in that right picture. Then on the other side, we're fully constructing. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Billy, you have a question or comment?
I won't do my happy dance right now. I'll save that until we break. But why is this called an alternate one?
It was included in the project as an add alternate. I think it did have some pedestrian improvements at the railroad crossing. And so just from a budget standpoint, we weren't quite sure how much it was going to come in at, but it came in pretty close to what we anticipated. So that's why it was included as an add alt.
So it will be included in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
project. And when you talk about Phase A and Phase B, are you going to share with us timing of that somewhere in your presentation?
They'll all be, so originally Phase B was at a later date in the CIP project, but it was determined since pretty much the whole stretch of Southwest is in poor condition, they were put together as one project. But for simplicity during the design, we already had Phase A fully designed. And so instead of having our consultant go back and change, incorporate all the plans into one project, we just had a Phase A and Phase B. But the plan is first quarter construction start of 2021 with an 18-month contract for the whole project.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of District 6 residents that live in that area and those that have to travel that area, I think that area around the McDonald's is, we're desperate for it. And so anyway, I just, I'm kind of speechless, at a loss for words. But anyway, I'm glad to see that this is going to start to progress. That's good news, good Christmas gift. Thank you.
And as Billy's doing her happy dance, I will not be making the happy dance because I have been trying to get sidewalks for Holloman in our area, and it was like, no. So that is my statement for today.
Yeah, on
Well, he
that
just
one,
likes me better, Lucy.
Apparently so.
Yeah, and we continue to work on that one. That's one we've been working with Lucy on. We applied for some grants opportunities, did
I'm
not
not
get
really
those,
happy
so we're
with
going to try to pursue that again if they come up, and that's a priority. It's needed.
Thank you.
You heard that it's a priority, right?
That's what they've been telling me for 2 years now.
And College Hills is on next agenda, correct?
Everybody's
Kidding, not kidding.
Mayor Tommy Hebert, I have a question for Mitch.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Mitch, you mentioned in this alternate one, I have one of the very earliest calls I got when I was got on the council in 2017 was from the principal at Lamar School. Is there anything going to be done with the actual construction of the roadway to help safety concerns that they expressed to me for the safety of the children, or is it just the sidewalks that you talk about here?
So there will be, as part of alternate one, there are some extra pedestrian improvements at the railroad crossing, and then right now there's a sidewalk north of the railroad crossing, or I'm sorry, crosswalk. A crosswalk north of the railroad crossing and a crosswalk south of the railroad crossing. So as part of this project, it's actually consolidating all of that into one crosswalk south of the railroad crossing. That way we're not having, too many crossing points for those children. That's why there's sidewalks on both sides, so those pedestrians can move down and then cross at that one crosswalk.
By chance, has there been any communication with the appropriate folks at the school district just to let them know about this, or did we get input from them as the design phase was beginning or during the design phase? Do you know?
I believe they were. This project was started a little bit before I took over it with another project engineer, but I do believe that the school district was contacted and kept in the loop of this project.
Shane, do you have comments on that? I know you're walking forward. Do you want to add anything right now?
Councilman Hebert, yes, we were, we did work with the school district quite a bit in the initial phases of design, working with them to look at where optimal crossing patterns would be for the students. And so, in short, yes, we did work with the school. Now, I don't know that we've updated them on the timing of the new construction, but we will do that shortly.
Good. Thank you, Shane. I appreciate that.
Go ahead.
So we did receive one bid on this project. It was from Reese Albert here in San Angelo. We're very familiar with them. The base bid came out at around $5.4 million, with alternate one coming in at around $130,000. With the contingency amount, the total contract amount comes out to around $5.9 million. The recommendation from staff is awarding the bid to Reese Albert plus the contingency at the amount shown on the screen there.
Further questions from council? If not, then may I have a motion for approval?
Mayor, I would like to make the motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Billy. A second?
I would like to make a second.
And Tommy has a second on that. All in favor? Or no public comment? No public comment? Oh, yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
Yes, Sylvia Martinez, and since everybody's getting sidewalks, why can't we get a sidewalks down Oaks? Y'all could put those bike things to go on all our parking, and we're business people that pay taxes, and they can't even put sidewalks to beautify Oaks, because there's for Fort Concho during this time, we have a lot of people. You should do that one day, because maybe you'll get it done before I die. But Fort Concho is important to y'all. I know it's not downtown or wherever you all are, because nobody's trying to never do nothing. I'm talking for Fort Concho. And I agree that these kids need to have a sidewalk.
Thank you very much. We've had a motion and a second, and any further public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item E is the following. Consider approving a memorandum of understanding, or MOU, between the San Angelo Area Foundation and the City of San Angelo to facilitate the reconstruction of Barracks 3 and Mess Hall 3 at Fort Concho, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Bob, you're on. Thank you.
Good morning, all. This is a rather exciting opportunity. We have an anonymous donor who has donated $2 million. It's held in the Area Foundation. Matt Lewis, the executive director of the foundation, is here to answer any questions you may have on the details. But we are looking at the opportunity to reconstruct Barracks 3 and Mess Hall 3, which have been missing to us for over 120 years. And they, upon completion, would house a first-class research collection, which has also been loaned to us. The details are in your packet. Basically, the location is in the gap between Barracks 2 and Barracks 5, and the building would look virtually similar to the barracks which are there today.
Well, I'm excited. This anonymous donor has put that money forward, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago.
That's correct.
And we've been negotiating with them, I think, to get everybody on the same page in terms of what should be done or could be done. So I'm glad we've come to a conclusion in terms of a path forward. So thank you. Harry?
I want to say thank you to the Area Foundation and both of Bob's boards for working towards this. I know it's a long time coming. Just for clarification for the citizens that are watching, the agenda item says Barracks 3 and Mess Hall 3. The MOU actually says Barracks 3 and 4 and Mess Hall 3 and 4. I suspect that is, you don't know what that money is going to be when it comes time for construction. And so it's
that's
for
correct.
clarification.
We wanted the option of reconstructing Barracks and Mess Halls number 4, and that would hinge on future fundraising. And it's very possible that the start of this project could excite some donors to help us with the next project. And by having the MOU cover both buildings at the same time, it just makes it much more efficient, because the issues are the same and the documents have been drawn up for both buildings.
Just to repeat, that this is no money from the city. This is all an anonymous donor.
All of the funds are private.
Not from the city's funds. And so do I have any further questions or comments? If not, Harry has made a motion for approval. May I have a second? And a second by Lucy. Any public comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that thank the donor for that and thank the Area Foundation. It just amazes me and causes me to get real emotional when I think about all of the partnerships in San Angelo and people giving of themselves to make San Angelo a great place. So thank you to the donor. Thank you to Matt Lewis. Bob, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, we've had a motion and we've had a second. We're going to be open for public comment if there is any. With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Get it going, Bob.
Thank you.
Item F is consider allocating up to $227,000 from the Civic Events Fund balance for facility improvements. And Sydney, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Good morning, City Management. City Manager Sydney Walker, Civic Events Manager. Just wanted to review and go over some of the improvements that we did make in this previous year. Last year, you all approved us for $100,000 to do a few improvements. I'll go over those. At the river stage, we did improve the restroom maintenance and the upgrade. We also did the concession stand, the ticket box for maintenance and upgrade, and we fixed the drainage issues. Here's a few of the pictures. Of course, the pictures do not do it justice, but it definitely looks a lot better than what we've had in the previous years. We're definitely grateful for being able to improve our facilities. We also did we were also able to get the parking lot seal coating and striping done for Farmers Market in the Paseo. This was funds that was given to us in 2018. So we were also able to complete that project. And then also, here's a picture of the farmer's market and also the Paseo. And also for here, we were able to upgrade to LED lighting in the main ballroom. If you haven't went, it definitely looks awesome. And also we're doing a lot with savings and stuff, moving to LED lighting as well for that project. These were the only projects that we had for last year for the facility improvements. We had $60,000 in facility improvement project savings. Of course, they came mostly from seal coating. And so with that $60,000, we are looking to do other projects for this following upcoming year. And those projects would be for the fire suppression system that's at the Foster Communications Coliseum. We have a yellow tag over there, so we're looking to get that fixed. That is our top priority with approximate cost of $40,000. We're also looking to upgrade our internet and Wi-Fi services for a few of our facilities. We can start with the McNeese Convention Center. Of course, we do have Wi-Fi here, but we do need additional access points to give us better service to our customers for events that we do hold in our facility.
I'm excited to see that. I know you've had to work with people and it's been difficult, so I'm glad to see this.
Definitely. The approximate cost for that is $36,000 with about a $150 monthly charge for that. For the river stage, we actually need full internet infrastructure for the box office, dressing rooms, concession stand, and the additional areas. That would be about $21,000 for the approximate cost, and again, $150 monthly fee. And then we also have the Foster Communications Coliseum we could upgrade internet infrastructure for the box office, the concession stand, and the lobby, which is an approximate cost of $80,000 with a $150 monthly fee. With us being able to get internet and Wi-Fi services for those areas, that would help us be able to move forward and be able to get the point of sale stations and be able to accept credit cards from our concessionaire for events. So moving forward, we would be able to have contactless payment options, reduce the hand-to-hand transactions, which is a good thing for right now as well. The city would also receive real-time sales of actual sales going on and not having to wait until the end until we find out what's the final amount of funds we receive. And then the
ticket sales, you mean?
This is actually for the concessionaire. So for all the food, alcohol and stuff, we would be able to have real-time sales for all the events. And then the concessionaire would also, like I said, be able to accept credit cards at most of our concession areas. This is definitely something that's in need. Of course, with the day and age that we have right now, accepting credit cards should be our top priority instead of just doing cash. So for civic events, our recommended facility improvements, just to go over, is $40,000 for the fire suppression system, $20,000 going towards the point of sale stations. That would be the $60,000, and then the internet and Wi-Fi services, we're looking at $147,000 total, with a project contingency of $15,000, which is a total amount of $227,000. We're asking to take this from our, using the savings that we had from our improvements, and then using the rest of it from our Fund 410 balance from civic events of $167,000. And our fund balance as of October 31st is $1.4 million that we have. We would also still have enough funds in there for our 90-day rainy day fund balance too.
So that $1.4 million covers your 90-day rainy day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's in there.
Thank you. Do I have questions for Sydney? Yes. Yes.
Just
Harry?
a real quick comment. I want to say thank you to Sid and staff and the Civic Events Board for having a plan to begin with. We started this 2 or 3 years ago, and quite honestly, when I looked at everything that needed to be done, I thought we would never get there, but we are making progress, and I want to say thank you. From my perspective, we're moving in the right direction, and as long as we can do it without breaking the bank, I want to move forward with all these things. So with that, I'd make a motion that we approve this.
There's a motion. Second by a motion by Harry and a second by Lucy. Do we have public comment? None, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Sydney.
Good job, Sydney.
Item G is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Offenses and Nuances, Article 8.11, Outdoor Lighting, Section 8.11.002, Outdoor Lighting Standard to clarify lighting standard measurements. Bob, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. Council requested that staff conduct some research on LED lighting before moving forward with amending the light trespass ordinance. We contacted the International Dark Sky Organization, which is one of the proponents for municipal light trespass ordinances. And according to their technical director, LED lights emit a significant amount of blue light, which makes it appear as if the light is brighter, but it's a physiological phenomenon that kind of tricks our eyes. LED lights are not, excuse me, are not any brighter than traditional street lights, and our standard light meter can, in fact, read LED lighting emissions. And I don't believe cities make special accommodations for LED lighting. So having said that, staff recommends approving amending the current light ordinance to eliminate the no light citation and reducing the maximum allowable intensity from 0.5 to 0.25 foot candles in residential neighborhoods, as other cities have done. That will help reduce some of the glare and light trespass issues in those neighborhoods, and we're asking council to approve it.
Do I have questions for Bob?
I think this will help the situation over off of College Hills and.
Well, actually, the problem there is that the light is shielded, but it's pointing upward. And I believe planning has a presentation following me that's going to look at ensuring that those lights are pointed downward. So if it's shielded correctly and the lights are pointed downward, the glare should be eliminated for the most part. Glare is a situation where you really can't measure. It's just it's a qualitative measurement if you're going to have a measurement. So that's a problem we have with glare.
Do I have other questions from council or comments?
I've got a question for Bob.
Who's talking?
It's
okay,
Tom.
Tommy. Okay, I couldn't see. Thanks. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, just following up with concern in the neighborhood as far as the lights when they come in. So if I understood what you just said, that maybe the shields are on these existing lights incorrectly, and if they put them on appropriately, that's going to alleviate a lot of our problems. And we're also reducing from a 0.5 down to a 0.25. But from what I've heard from a couple of people in this district is, that's a concern. And also, do they have a time frame that they can operate at night? Because I know some tournaments are 24-hour tournaments, and I don't exactly know how this fits into this agenda item, but it did merit bringing up at the time.
I believe, Councilman, that the next presentation is going to talk about the hours of operation as well. So they will be addressing that issue.
Tom, do you want, before we take a vote on this, would you like to hear the other presentation before we take a vote?
No, I think I'm good with it. We're traveling the right path to fix it.
Okay. Any other questions from council or comments? All right, do I have a motion for approval? Lane has moved to approve. Do I have a second? And a second by Harry. Do I have public comment? Please come forward. One person at a time.
Morning. My name is Jennifer Poppy, and my fiance is also here, Shane Bearden. We're SMD 5. We were here at the last council meeting regarding this ordinance change due to the struggle that we have been having with the driving range lights behind our home. I have submitted some photos illuminating our neighbors' homes, our home, and some other from the driving range, but also from other LED lighting that's been put into the neighborhood. There's a church sign at the Trinity Lutheran Church that shines into our backyards and my neighbors' backyards and illuminates our trees. There's also the Shannon Clinic Senior Care building behind our home that have put up lights on their building that far goes beyond their parking lot and illuminates the field behind their home. And we've been trying, code compliance is aware of the driving range light trespass. The owner's been aware of it since February, but code compliance has been aware of it since June, and the lights still are not shielded. They are pointing downward. The owner finally pointed them downward, but these photos were taken this past weekend and some of them November 14th, and that is still the current light situation. You can see my shadow on my home when I walk into my back door from outside. The light shines on our fence, the back of our home, inside our home. We don't know why they're not shielded yet, and we get some bizarre answers from code compliance. And we knew we had to start attending council meetings, planning meetings, when we found out that the light situation from the driving range was going to be brought up at these meetings, because we still wondered why they weren't being shielded. They were just pointed downward, but we still had the light trespass issue. Planning meeting went well. I believe planning said that the zone change that the owner of Next Level put in, it would be approved if he shielded his lights. As of now, they still are not shielded, but planning also told me that code compliance is the one to enforce the shielding. Also, code compliance had told us that the city manager put a hold on all enforcement of outdoor lighting ordinance violations. So that was another concern for us. We didn't understand why that was put in place. Even with the ordinance change that presented today, lowering the foot candles, we don't know if that will help or not. There's another part of the ordinance on light trespass. It is actually section 8.11005 on light trespass. It does say that the maximum intensity of light trespass is 0.5 foot candles, and I understand if that's lowered to 0.25, that may help. But there's also another part of the light trespass ordinance that needs to be enforced as well, that I think will help our neighborhood, including the driving range lights. The other part of the light trespass ordinance in 8.11.005 says that the use of luminaries shall be operated so as not to produce glare or direct illumination across bounding property line from a visible source of illumination of such intensity as to create a nuisance or detract from the use or enjoyment of an adjacent property, which would be us. All outside lights shall be made up of a light source and a reflector so selected that acting together the light beam is controlled and not directed across any property line, bounding property line above a height of 3 feet. So we're also being told that this part of the ordinance can't be measured. However, maybe the intensity is not being met with the light meter, but our home is approximately 1,800 feet from the driving range, and my face is above a height of 3 feet. So to me, that is measurable, and the light is still hitting our face when we're sitting on our back porch swing. It's still hitting our home. It's measurable, and it's a problem. And I'm here on behalf of my other neighbors on Cumberland Drive that have filed complaints as well. We just want the lights to be shielded properly, and get the lights off our homes. That driving range has been behind this home, which is my family home, for decades, and we never had any problems until the LED lights started going up. And the owner has selected 9 LED lights of the 20 that were there before. 9 of them are the equivalent of the metal halides that were there in the 80s and 90s, but the rest of the 9 LED lights the owner selected far exceed the equivalent as to what was there before. And I got that information from his report that planning, I think, next is going to produce to you guys. We want that business of Next Level to do well. We're not out to get them. We're not out to hurt them. It is great for our neighborhood, But we just want the owner to be responsible and correctly put up LED lighting to where, and shield it properly, follow the ordinance. If he does that, it'll actually benefit him. It'll illuminate his field. He says he doesn't shield the lights because his golfers can't see their golf balls. But if he properly shields his light and directs it on to only the field, it actually will help his customers see the golf balls. He has selected his LEDs to where it's just whitewashing the field. He's put way too much light out there, and that's why I'm assuming that's why his customers can't see the golf balls, but it's also hurting our neighborhood. We just want the light off of our homes that we have been dealing with since February. It's been a roller coaster trying to get the ordinance enforced. I hope that lowering the foot candles will help, but Bob Salas, when I talked to him last week, he said if the measurement from our backyards does not meet the new 0.25 foot candles, even if it doesn't meet that all the LED lighting in the neighborhood is not violating the ordinance. And we're just here to make sure that that other part of the ordinance is still enforced. It's not only the measurement with the phototopic meter. It's got to be the other part of the ordinance on the light trespass. That if we don't enforce that part, then businesses, residences, they're going to throw up all these LED lights, and even if it doesn't measure the 0.25 foot candles, the glare is just going to start shining on other homes, businesses from a block away, and that's exactly what's happening in our neighborhood. And I hope you were able to see the photos that we took. They're very recent. No flash was used. I just tried to give y'all some examples of the light shining on the homes. And these are from 1,800 to 2,000 feet away. So any questions? I hope I kind of gave y'all all the information of why we're here, and just.
Can we go back
Dane,
to that?
would you like to make
Yeah,
comments
can we
or
go back
questions?
to that picture of the front yard facing that one?
Okay, that was taken from our back patio. That is, we are in our backyard on our back porch
So
outside.
Your house is
North facing.
facing.
Yes, sir. It's north facing, and the lights that you do see is the driving range. The other light on the right-hand side illuminating the trees is the College Hill Swim and Racket Club. That's another point I want to make. The College Hill Swim and Racket Club has been there forever. Even when their tennis court lights are completely illuminated, every single one of them, it still does not put glare on our home. And they're only, 200 feet away, if that. But they're shielded properly. They're directed onto their courts.
Right.
And they have netting up to help with the glare, so.
What I don't understand is when we were going through the development of this property with the owners, why, and we were requiring shielding, that's obviously, like, I agree with you, it's not shielded.
Correct. And that's the reason why we're here. We're getting conflicting information from code compliance. The last conversation I had with Daniel Fisher, it was a bizarre conversation. I couldn't really follow what he was saying. He would 1 minute say they were shielded, and then the next minute he would say they weren't shielded. Then when we attended the planning meeting, the owner, Sean Box himself, said they were not shielded. And the reason he hadn't shielded the lights is because he wants his customers to be able to see the balls.
I think
Yes,
some of this
Teresa.
conversation is going to take place with the other item.
Yes.
So
Yes.
right now, we're talking about the ordinance, and I think that we change the language in the ordinance to make it a little easier for court enforcement to enforce it, because there was some contradictions within the ordinance itself. So I don't want her to go too far down this path, and then you guys have to go down it again when John's item comes up.
That's
So
the reason I was asking about whether we proceed with the next item and listen to it before we take a motion and a vote, or if we can go ahead and take a motion and a vote, then proceed. So it's just clarification for council in terms of what they would like us to do here.
John's on the same item G?
no, it's the next item.
Item
H.
H.
We'd still have to take two votes, one for each item.
Well, I know we'll have to take two votes. It's just
there's
whether
some
we want to
conflict.
take a
Okay, there's
vote
something
before
that-
we discuss the second item. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, I see it now. I was seeing that as a rezoning. Okay, good to go. I understand now.
I mean, we're okay if the ordinance is changed to what they're wanting to change it to, but we also want to make sure that the other part of the light trespass ordinance about the glare crossing property boundary lines and shining up on other properties is also enforced as well. That's the above a height of 3 feet.
Daniel?
Mayor, this is a tool for just better enforcement, something that we need to have in place anyway. I think the PD on the next item will actually address the positioning of lighting and everything else. So
Yeah, they're
again,
currently downward facing right now. That picture that is currently up, that is the driving range lights at a downward angle, but still not shielded.
All right, do I have further questions for?
I'd just
on
like
this?
to comment, thank you for bringing the pictures, because when it was, brought up last time, I couldn't really get a good perspective.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
pictures really bring it home, so
Okay.
thank you so much for taking the time to do
There were a
that.
lot of photos. I don't know if y'all got a good look at those. I mean, most of them are from our backyard, but they're also from College Hills Boulevard with the church sign. That's our back patio there. That's my shadow on my home because of the glare from the driving range lights. That's backyard as well. You can see the people you're taking a photo of, the reflection of the lights in the glass. Backyard as well. It's illuminated. Back fence, back of our home illuminated from the driving range lights. Fence from the driving range lights. That is illuminating the College Hills Swim and Racket parking lot and our alleyway, again, from the driving range. That is downward facing lights, also just unshielded. That is actually a view I took. The driving range lights are actually illuminating the fields in the Red Arroyo Trail area. That pathway that you see is the Red Arroyo Trail itself. I don't even walk on the trail anymore because the glare is just so unpleasing. So those are some trees behind Swim and Racket Club that the driving range lights illuminate as well. Again, that's probably at about 1,600 feet away from the driving range. That's the church sign at the Trinity Lutheran Church. That green glare does reach our backyard and our neighbor's backyard and illuminates our trees in our backyard. My neighbor talked to me about that as well. He actually attends that church. He was going to maybe try to talk to somebody at the church to see if there was anything they could do to reduce the glare and the light from that sign. That is the sign from the alleyway just behind our home. You can see the green sign at the church. You can also see the Shannon Clinic lights. That is the most recent light, and you can tell that the light extends behind their building and illuminates the field behind them. This is a view from College Hills where the light from the church sign stretches downward to Cumberland Drive. Again, that's the Shannon Clinic building lights that they've currently or just recently put up. You can see the glare behind the building, how far it reaches into the field. It does reach all the way to the Swim and Racket Club and to the Red Arroyo Trail as well. That is a view from behind the Shannon Clinic. That is with no flash. That is behind their building. We took that. The big bright white light in the background is the sign at Next Level Sports. So by 10:30, Next Level Sports has their driving range lights turned off. That is a picture after that time. That's of Shannon Clinic. Again, the lights stretching beyond their parking lot into the field in the Red Arroyo area.
Is there any concern if all those lights are dimmed about security or safety?
You're asking me, or
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Well,
Because
I've
it's
done
really
a.
lit up right now, so one would be not. I mean, I would just think there's some level of security that helps with in the neighborhood. But
I've done a lot of research about LED lighting in the past, well, since February. And if you over illuminate with LED lights, the security is actually more compromised because it produces shadows that people can lurk in. You're again whitewashing what you're trying to illuminate. It's kind of like our backyard. People could be hiding in our backyard. We won't know it because the glare is so bad. You can't see the ground. The ground that you're walking on. You have to shield your own eyes in order to see the ground. It's too bright. So from a security standpoint, it's actually bad if you're not shielding your LED lights. If you're using too many bulbs that are way exceeding what the older bulbs were, then you're actually creating a worse safety problem. On the Red Arroyo Trail, the glare is so bad, people could be hiding in little trees and bushes, and you're not going to know it because the glare is illuminating your face, and you can't tell. You can't tell what's out there.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'm sure there's some other public comment, so we'll let other people come forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person like to bring any comments, or do they feel like it's been covered already? Are you okay? Okay. Oh, we've got one more. Come on forward.
Sean Box, the owner of Sports Next Level. And so the lights, you know, I've probably adjusted them 5 times, and the light poles, they're the original ones. And when I first got with my engineer, you know, on the lights, you know, the ones that were in there were metal halides, and they're just not energy efficient. They're just old. And those lights have been there, like she said, they've been there since the 80s. So we put the new LED lights, didn't change any poles, didn't change any positioning. You know, the old metal halides were pointing straight out. So when I put the LED lights up, I just put them the same way the other fixtures were. And that's when it started to become a problem. Like I said, I'm not trying to, you know, I understand where she's at, but at the same time, that driving range has been there a long time. So, you know, I have adjusted them 5 times, different times. They are pretty much pointing straight down. There's not a shield on them, but there's a kind of like on the signs, the big bright signs, there's like it's kind of a, wouldn't call it a shield. It's kind of like a cream to where it kind of cuts down glare. So I put that on every one of the lights to cut down some of the glare. And that came from the sign people that have to deal with, you know, the issues of the signs always being bright. That was their recommendation, to try to put that on there. There isn't a shield. And the reason I haven't done that is when I talk to my engineers, the lights are pretty much pointing straight down. And if I shield them, all it's going to do is now it's just going to put the lights right below. And like I said, I'm not an engineer. I don't know all that, but I just kind of go off of what he tells me. So if I put the shield on, I'm going to have to kind of raise the lights, and then I feel like we're going to be back in the same boat where we're at. And, you know, I went over to where her house is, and, you know, when you're where she's at, it is the same thing. You know, the light at the church, the light on Shannon. And the other thing is the tennis court lights. They were on they don't come on very often. That's why they don't really cause a problem. And the other reason, there's trees all around them, so it kind of deflects everything. But when those lights are on, looking back my way, they're just as bright going the other way. And, you know, they're not pointed straight down. They're kind of out at an angle. So, you know, I would love to just figure it out and be done with it. But, you know, at the same time, that has been there since the 80s. And that was, when I did do this project, I didn't think that was going to be one of the problems I had to overcome. So, you know, maybe by this 0.25 candles, you know, my guy can go by something. But they did do, the engineer did do a reading, and there's no light trespass anywhere close off my property. I mean, it doesn't even get to the end of where the property line is. So, you know, we did that. So yeah, I'm kind of where I just don't know what to do. I just need to be able to light up the driving range, because it has been there forever. And I think some of it has to do with, before, it's never been on. It was maybe on, then they turn them off. You know, we're consistently there, and it's something that's doing well. So, you know, that's why they are on all the time. But I am open to trying to figure out a solution. I just don't know what the solution is. I would just like to get it done.
Thank you, Sean. Does anyone have a question for Sean? With no questions, thank you, Sean.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do I have a motion for approval?
You have it, Mayor.
Oh, I've already
You have
done
a
that,
motion
so
and a second,
sorry.
right?
And we've had public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Catching up again. Okay, with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Item H, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving case PD 20-03, rezoning property from the general commercial and family residential zoning districts to, wait a minute, yeah. Residential zoning districts to a planned development zoning district to allow for sports facility, related recreational activities and events, and other improvements as shown on the concept plan, being 21.536 acres located at 2838 South College Hills Boulevard. And John, you're on.
Thank you. The handouts that you're getting are from the applicant, Mr. Box, with just some pictures, and so I'll let him describe what those are showing later on in the public comment section. But this is the subject property that you were just discussing there off of College Hills. You may recall that this came to you as a special use permit a while back that approved some of what's in this. And so all of that, or most of that, is not changing, really, and I'll get into the details of what is changing, but it basically does have to do with the lighting as well as a parking lot on the site. It is shown on our future long-range plan as open space, and it has a combination, mostly zoning, of general commercial. Just a couple of pictures of the site. Here's the parking lot that we'll be discussing. This parking lot was added without a parking lot permit and without floodplain permits, and so that's part of what this has prompted this to come back, is to go through the proper processes. But it also, the request from the applicant is not to have to pave that parking lot as required by the ordinance, and so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute as well. And there's just a couple of pictures looking out towards the driving range. There's one picture of one of the light poles, as well as a picture similar to what you were just looking at, seeing the glare off of those lights at a distance. We did send out our notices to the surrounding property owners, received one in favor, a total of 4 in opposition, including from some of the homeowners that are there to the south. This is the concept plan. It's based on the original concept plan that you all approved with the special use, but you can see there in yellow is the parking area. On the original concept plan, that was shown as a building. And so I think Mr. Box's idea is he put in that caliche parking lot, but built it as a base, or that could be the base for that future building. And so that's part of the reason that it was not paved, and that's part of the reason for his request not to pave it.
John?
Yeah.
I have a question, Mayor. So originally, what we approved was the concept that all parking lots would be paved?
Well, our zoning ordinance requires that all parking lots be paved, so that wasn't specific to this property. But with a few exceptions, most new parking lots that are created or built in the city have to be paved and can't be that sort of caliche. I know one of the things that Mr. Box brought up at the Planning Commission meeting was some examples around town of other parking lots that aren't paved, but all of those were pre-existing our ordinance that required new parking to be paved.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at, was there an understanding with Mr. Box when we started this that parking lots would be paved?
I can't speak to what he knew at the time, but I'm not aware of any expectation that parking did not have to be paved on the site. Again, his original concept plan showed that as a building site. So until we saw a parking lot out there on the ground, we didn't know that there was ever any intent to have that as overflow parking. I suspect that he didn't intend that either until he saw how successful and there was a need for overflow parking, and that's why he added that additional parking.
Thank you.
This is that lighting plan that he mentioned. Per this plan, as he mentioned, there's no light trespass per the new ordinance, the 0.25 foot candles. Again, that doesn't address the light and glare. As the neighbor mentioned, those are kind of two different issues, but shielding will help resolve that. And this plan development, as recommended by staff and the Planning Commission, does require the shielding of those light poles. As you've seen, it's hard to get a good picture of lighting that shows the impact, but there's some existing lighting as well as the proposed lighting, which does reduce the overall level of lighting on the site. But you can see those are a little bit angled, and that's really the purpose of shielding, is that all lighting is directed down and not out. And so by making sure that the lighting is directed downward as required by the plan development, then it's not shooting outward. You're putting it down where you're trying to light, but not off the property outward. So again, I won't spend a lot of time on this. Most of it is the same as what was in the special use you already approved. But as I mentioned, the new Caliche parking lot was really what triggered this to come back. And instead of trying to modify the special use, for a couple of reasons, we decided a plan development was the better way to go because it allowed more flexibility in what could be allowed on the site. There is a note that a floodplain permit will be required regardless of what you all approve. Pave the parking lot, don't pave the parking lot, because that does extend into the floodplain. That will have to be addressed. And we believe that this addresses most of the lighting concerns of the neighbors by requiring that those lights be shielded. Staff does recommend approval with 9 conditions. Those include the 2 conditions added by the Planning Commission. We had originally recommended that they comply with the ordinance to pave the parking. The Planning Commission said, well, if there's a chance of that future building, let's give them some time, and in this case gave them 3 years that they could keep the parking lot unpaved so that it can become the base for that new building if they decide to do that. But at the end of 3 years, if they haven't built that new building, per the Planning Commission's recommendation, they would then have to go back in and pave that parking lot. And they also added the condition that all lighting be shielded to further protect the neighbors with that lighting issue. So here's a summary of all of the conditions. It would have to conform with the underlying zoning, which is general commercial. With the special use, you all authorized a reduced setback so that that building could be slightly closer to the street. Because of the way College Hills curves, and the square building, to fit that building on the site, it had to encroach a little bit closer to the street than the 25 feet normally allowed. They would have to comply with the concept plan. As I mentioned, floodplain permit would be required, and he will have to submit an urban design review. That was already approved, and they'll have to revise that document to match what's approved here. Would have to get a parking lot permit for that parking lot, and then all site lighting would be downward and shielded. And then to address a question from earlier, although it's not required citywide per the ordinances, this plan development would limit the lighting and outdoor events to not occur between 10:30 and 6:30 a.m. And I believe that's what they're already doing, but this would help protect those neighbors for any future events or things to ensure that everything ends at 10:30 p.m. This does revoke that special use that was approved before because it's basically replacing it. And then, as I mentioned, Planning Commission added that requirement that the parking doesn't have to be paved, but would have to be in 3 years if it's still being used as a parking lot. I think that's a quick overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Billy, do you have any further questions or comments? No. Lane, do you?
Sure that stipulation that all lighting be shielded will correct what we have seen in the pictures and not have such an effect on the front-facing part of their house, and backyards, and their neighbors, because that was pretty bright.
We believe it would. Again, there are some concerns that the shielding the lights to make them go downward, it doesn't diffuse as much, and so. Depending on the brightness of the lights and how many lights you have, we think there are a sufficient number of lights that it would still light the driving range even with the shielding. But again, as Mr. Box mentioned, he has some concerns that by shielding it, you're focusing the light downward so much that it's not spreading throughout the entire driving range. So that's the flip side, but we believe it would address the neighbors' concerns for this particular case.
Lucy, do you have any questions or comments? No. Harry? Tom? Or Tommy?
No, ma'am. Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
On the parking lot, I get planning's going to give them 3 years. So does that mean they don't have to do anything for 3 years and it just sits there, John? Or are you asking him to bench it and maybe do partial as we go through over the years?
No, the Planning Commission recommendation was to allow it to stay as it is. I mean, it's a pretty solid caliche. It's not like they just threw some gravel out there. It's a well-constructed caliche. It just doesn't have the paving, but per their recommendation, they would be allowed to keep it as is for up to 3 years.
It's a good parking lot. It's not, number one, he needs parking. We can't approve a project and then have a successful project and then not have a parking lot to accommodate the business. And I've been out there, I've looked at it, and it's a pretty good, solid parking lot. It's not just sand thrown out there.
And let me clarify that just a little bit, because as I mentioned, he will have to do a floodplain permit. And because that caliche can be loose and can run off if it's not done properly, as part of that floodplain permit, they may require him to do certain things to ensure that that doesn't erode, into the arroyo or that sort of thing. So that might require some improvements of some sort. I don't know what those would be, but that would be part of the floodplain permit process.
I'm good with it. It's a sizable expense to pave and park it. I'm sure Sean's already got a lot of money tied up in it. I was just curious how that went, and you've answered my questions. I don't think I need to go any further with this. It's all good.
Do I have a motion for approval? Lane has moved to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Harry. Any further public comment? Please come forward. And once again, if you would, please state your name and your SMD area. I would appreciate it.
Jennifer R. Poppy, SMD 5. I guess I just have a question. After the ordinance approval and the zone change approval for Next Level Sports, I guess I need to know what to tell my neighbors who also filed complaints about the lighting. When will the city managers freeze or hold on the enforcing the ordinance be removed? I guess what's the time frame that my neighbors can expect some relief from the lighting on our homes?
I think number one, that passing the new ordinance is the motion that needs to happen in order for the city manager not to stop the old ordinance from being enforced. So this new would replace the old and become enforceable on second reading.
Aaron, I was looking for clarification as well, as far as I know that the questions were asked about the lumens and what have you. So I was looking for clarification. Also understood that the lights have been repositioned, and also knew that the PD would be looked at and maybe likely approved. So I wanted to make sure that all of that went first. And I'm at the point now that absolutely we can move forward in making sure that what's being discussed here is enforced.
Okay.
So as far as the shielding and what have you, and I'll be working with Mr. Box as well, and code enforcement, but we'll get that resolved.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will move on to item I, which is a first reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving 1 CP 20-07, an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing of certain lands from the open space and neighborhood center future land uses to the neighborhood land use located at 607 and 609 Locust Street, and to Z20-18, a rezoning from the single-family resident zone district to the two-family resident zoning district, being .321 acres located at 607 and 609 Locust Street. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is an area, you can see Houston Hart here. The high school is kind of across Houston Hart there, and so we're looking at these two properties highlighted in red, kind of between Houston Hart and the river. And basically the request from the applicant is to rezone from RS1, which allows single-family homes, to RS2, which would allow duplexes. And so they would be proposing duplexes on each of those properties. It is a mixed-use area, as I'll mention, but there are some residential uses, some non-residential uses, and so it's clearly not a exclusively single-family neighborhood, so this rezoning does make a lot of sense. It is a combination of neighborhood center and open space, and so that's the reason for the change to the comprehensive plan, to make sure that it's consistent with the RS2 zoning. You can see that most of that area is zoned RS1 currently, but many of the uses out there are non-conforming uses that are not RS1 single-family uses. You can see some of them have been rezoned in the past, office, warehouse, and commercial, but even some of these properties are not currently single-family, but again, they're pre-existing, so unless they're doing something new, they don't have to come in for rezoning. The floodplain, as you can see here, the floodway is the red, the floodplain is the blue, so it does affect these properties. They will have to address that with floodplain permits, and I think they're aware of that as well. This is the property, so to the left of the property is this non-residential use, old maintenance facility, and then a nonprofit building to the right. So the duplexes would be sandwiched between those two uses. We did send out our notices to surrounding properties, did not receive any responses in favor or in opposition. Again, staff is recommending approval. This is a mixed-use area, and so the change to RS2 makes a lot of sense for the comprehensive plan amendment as well as the rezoning. I would mention duplexes like this is one of the types of housing that we see a shortage in, and so as we're looking to provide more affordable and attainable housing, these kinds of rezonings help provide that missing need. So staff does recommend approval of both the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning, and the Planning Commission also unanimously recommended that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No, I don't have any questions. I move to approve as presented. I hadn't heard from anybody against this.
Any other questions from any of council members before we move us for a second? Second by Billy. All in any public comment at this point? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to item J, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving case Z20-19, a rezoning from the single-family residential zoning district to the two-family residential zoning district located at 1602 Kenwood Drive.
Thank you. Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is a similar case, although it's an existing property, a developed property, but rezoning from RS1 single family to RS2. This is a home that's been there since the 1950s. So you can see the home in the front, and then there's an accessory apartment to the rear. That's not uncommon in this neighborhood. We've had similar rezonings kind of sporadically throughout the neighborhood, and this is basically to legalize that secondary apartment in the back. Under our current ordinance, single-family zoning does not allow garage apartments, second units like this, and so it requires the rezoning to RS2. I'll mention that one of the things that we're researching and a number of other cities have looked at is loosening up those restrictions on secondary dwellings like this, and that's something you may be seeing in the future. But for now, a zoning like this is required to address this issue. You can see here that this RS2 zoning, everything back to the east is already RS2, and so this would just actually contiguous pull in this adjacent property. That's not necessarily required. You know, we could rezone a property in the middle of all this to RS2, and that would still be consistent with our comprehensive plan. But this is being immediately adjacent to the RS2 helps with that argument. Here's the house in the picture on the left, and then on the right you can see that garage apartment that's in the back. And just some of the homes around this property. We did send out 25 notices to the surrounding property owners. We received one in favor and one in opposition. And I think the opposition there was just concerned about traffic and more units in the area, but as I mentioned, this is an already existing, so it's not like they're going to build a duplex on this property that's vacant. It's an already existing accessory apartment. So this is consistent with our comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, the neighborhood does have multiple examples of this because that was a fairly common thing to build an accessory apartment back in the 40s and 50s. And as I mentioned, properties to the east are already zoned RS2, and this does another example of providing affordable small-scale rental housing in a way that doesn't really largely negatively affect the surrounding neighborhood. Staff does recommend approval, and the Planning Commission also unanimously recommended approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Lane, do you have any questions or comments on this item? It's in your district.
Like I said on a few other items that we've had presented to us kind of similar to this, it's just making it legal, so I'll move to approve.
Second by Lucy. Are there any public comments on this item? With none, we'll take a vote. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. We'll go to item K, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance providing for the abandonment of approximately 7,200 square feet or 0.165 acres of alley right-of-way located north of East Washington Drive between South Chadbourne Street and Orient Street.
Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. You can see here on the aerial photo, there's Chadbourne to the left and Washington Street to the south and Avenue D to the north, and then Orient there to the right. You can see that's kind of an L-shaped alley in the middle of this block, and so the applicant is simply wanting to incorporate that into the property. And I'll mention some of the stipulations that we're recommending on that, but it would abandon this as an alley while retaining some easements for access to utilities and that sort of thing in the area. It is in the commercial area zoned general commercial, heavy commercial. We sent our notifications and we did not receive any responses. This says we also sent to any of the properties immediately adjacent. We send them a letter saying you're able to claim your half of that alley if this abandonment goes through. This says we have not received any responses. Now we have received some responses. But again, that's sort of, we used to do that after it was approved at council. Now we've started sending those notices ahead of time just so people understood their rights a little bit earlier in the process and would be able to come object if they did object for some reason. Just a little bit about how that process works. If one owner claims their half, then they have to replat that into their property. If they do not claim it, then the property across the street then can be the next to claim it. So in this case, for example, the applicant would desire the entire alley. So if those properties across do not claim theirs, I think his intent would be to claim it all if possible. Just a few pictures. You can see here that what is technically the alley is already used for maneuvering and parking for those adjacent businesses. And so this would just basically allow that to continue, but wouldn't, it would allow it basically in a legal way. And then here you can see the other alley, the east-west portion, looks more like a used alley. And you can see the poles there for utilities. There's the original plat of that area showing the alley. You can see a little bit of an alley here that was abandoned recently. Not recently, at some point in the past, that was already abandoned, so this would abandon the remainder of that alley. We do send these out to all departments within the city, but also all utility companies. And one of the recommendations is for an unobstructed access easement for all of the lines and utilities and cables that are within there. And so the request from those utility companies is, in no case do we allow buildings over easements like this, but in some cases we allow the property owner to fence it in as long as they provide a gate. In this case, the utility companies have said there's enough different utilities and they need access to it on a regular basis. They've recommended not even fencing within that alley. So the adjacent property owner can use it for parking, can use it for driving vehicles across the property, but they would not be able to install any buildings or fencing. Just some rationale for approval. Again, it goes through all of our review process. We found no negative impact on traffic or community impact to the neighbors. We believe that there's no public benefit to keeping the alley, so we're recommending approval of abandoning that alley to those adjacent property owners. We are recommending that with 3 conditions of approval, and the Planning Commission also unanimously recommended with those conditions. One is to replat the property. That's a standard requirement for abandonments of streets or alleys, and they have 36 months to do that. If they don't, then the alley reverts back to an alley. There's also in the fee schedule an assessment formula based on the value of the surrounding properties. They pay a fee to the city for release of that alley. And then after they have replatted the property, the city will issue a quitclaim deed disclaiming any interest in that alley so that it formally transfers over to the owner or owners. Future platting may trigger, it's one of the things that we're trying to tell applicants now, replatting the properties might trigger other improvements to the roads, to utilities, that sort of thing. And so we make them aware of that. If they do access, if it's paved, then they have to meet the fire code standards for maintaining a fire lane through that area. As I already mentioned, fencing and buildings would not be allowed. And as also mentioned, this may, because there are multiple property owners adjacent to this alley, some of those property owners may need to get agreement amongst each other how they want to split up that alley. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Harry?
Comment. I've been working with Mario and Gracie probably 2 or 3 years on this situation. As their business expands, I'm sure that they're going to be interested in purchasing additional properties in that particular area, especially that one is directly north of them. So I certainly think this is an opportunity for us to support a business, and I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second? I'm not going to vote on this item as I have an adjacent property there. So all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Closed session. We will now move into the closed session. Executive session on the provision of Government Code, Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to Requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, 551.071, Consultation with Attorney regarding Sheila Andrews. 2, 551.072, Deliberations about real property regarding Ford Ranch. And C, 551.074, D, 551.087, Deliberation regarding economic development negotiations regarding Mathis Field project. With that, we will move into executive session. of the year. All right, we are going to call this meeting back to order following our closed session. There are no announcements from our closed session, so we'll move into item B, consideration of approving various board nominations. Civic Events Advisory Board, Billy Nahara, I always mispronounce that, sorry. Nahara, that's how it is, Nahara. SMD 3 to third,
You had it right the first
I
time.
had it? Okay, good. To third term, Steve Mahaffey, SMD 5 to third term, and Del Velasquez, Mayor to third term, all ending December 2022. Concho River Water Master Advisory Committee, council members Tom Thompson and Tommy Hebert, Mayor Brenda Gunter, Daniel Valenzuela, and Allison Struby to all terms ending August 2022. In the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Kenneth Deersky, SMD 1 to third term, Laura DiCialo, SMD 3 to a third term, and Debbie Wilson, SMD 4 to a second term, all ending December 2022. May I have a motion for approval?
So move. Approve.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to take Harry's motion and Lane's second. Any issues with the item for public comment? With none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. And now we'll move into item C, announcements and consideration of future agenda items. All I'm going to say is have a very Merry Christmas, the last meeting of the year, and we'll see each other in January, if not before. Thank you, everybody, and may all have a very Merry Christmas.
New Year's.
May I have a motion for adjournment?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Lane. Second by Lucy.
When's that for?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The meeting in January will in fact be the 5th of January, January 5 of 2021.
And we're leaving 2020 behind.
Yes,
2020 behind.
definitely. Sounds good.